Good afternoon, pilgrims. This will be a video on what to see and do when you arrive in Santiago. So, a lot of times once you reach Santiago, you're tired and you just want to go home, but I would suggest you spend 2 or 3 extra days there because there's a lot to see and do either in Santiago or from Santiago. The first thing I want to tell you is a lot of people rush to the pilgrim office as soon as they get into town. I don't do that. I go to my lodging, get a shower, rest, get some dinner, and then the next morning I get up first thing in the morning and get in line at the pilgrim office to get my Compostela. I don't know. It's just the way I do it, and I think it's a good way. Things to see there. Oh my gosh, there's so much good shopping there. Just go through the old town and see the shopping, but then also go out of old town up into the more modern Santiago de Compostela and find some really great deals on clothing and on shoes and on different things out of the tourist area. There's some really good shopping. One of the museums that I think people miss a lot, and it's just a shame, is called Museo del Pueblo Gallego. And this is a folk museum that's just wonderful. It has a lot about the history of the Galician people and culture. It's in a convent. It used to be free. I'm pretty sure it still is. It's just an extraordinary place to visit and probably take an hour or two in there. It's a short walk from Old Town, just a few blocks. So that's one of the things I would see. Another thing I wouldn't miss is the open market. If you go up above town, Old Town, along the walls, along the old walls back behind the cathedral, there's a market that goes on that's just wonderful. You can get a lot of really good stuff there, including food, in case you've got an apartment or a place to cook. So that's a good place to visit. You can also get some really good gifts to take home. And speaking of gifts to take home, one of the best gifts I've ever found, and it's really inexpensive, if you have friends who enjoy cooking, you can purchase saffron in Spain really inexpensively. And I'm talking, saffron is $2,000 to $10,000 a pound, and it's quite expensive in the United States. For under 20 euros, you can get a whole box of saffron, either ground saffron in little packets or the stamens. The man across the street is rubbing up his muffler. Hang on a minute. The place I always go to is in Plaza Cervantes at number 9. There's a little store called Capita. If you're in my group, I'll show you where it is, but he carries saffron. But there are a lot of places in town that carry it. And you can get a little plastic box for around, well, it used to be 6 euros. I don't know what it'll be now. Or you can get a big box, which is what I usually get, with 50 packets of the ground spice for under 20 euros. If you go to my blog and do a search on saffron, you will see some photos. So that's one thing, is the shopping. If you're in my group, you're going to be staying in the monastery of San Martin Pinario. If you're not in my group, you'll want to visit and go inside. It's really a beautiful building to see. It was founded in the 9th century by Benedictine monks. And we actually stay in the little monk cells, which are very modest, but just a fun place to stay. What else to see in Santiago? Well, one of the things you can do from Santiago is go back behind the monastery that I just mentioned to the taxi stands and ask about what a taxi would cost for you to go to Finisterre, to the lighthouse, and see that while he waits for you, and then to take you to Muxia, where maybe you can have lunch with some friends, or maybe even pay for the taxi's lunch, and he'll wait for you, and then he'll bring you back. In the past, that's been between 100 and 120 euros, and that's for as many people as you can fit into the taxi. So if a group of 3 or 4 of you are sharing, that's the same price that you would pay for a bus, which will only take you to the lighthouse and back. So with the taxi, you get a much more private trip, and you get to see Muxia, which I think is much more beautiful than Finisterre, and you get to have lunch there and come back. So it can be a really good thing for a few pilgrims to get together and do. There's a lot of seafood you'll see in the tourist area of Santiago. Feel free to eat there, or there are some better places, I think, out of the tourist area. So go explore. I'm not going to tell you the name of my favorite restaurant because I don't want it to be full when I get there, but there are 2 or 3 restaurants out of the area. The Parador is a beautiful building and a good place to go and explore and have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie, which will cost you a mint, but worth doing. If you can afford to stay at the Parador your last night, it's a treat. I've stayed in the Parador at Santo Domingo del Calzada, which was also wonderful. I got sick one time on the Camino, and I sent Joe out looking for a place to stay, and he didn't come back, and I was so cold I just went to the Parador and booked a room, and I didn't pay attention to what it was costing. And when I got my credit card bill, it was like 350 euros, but it was worth it. I had a wonderful night, and they had a really nice breakfast in bed for me. The cathedral is a wonderful place to visit. I would get there first thing in the morning before the lines begin. I also would suggest that if you can afford it, you book the cathedral roof tour. It's a wonderful tour, and I'm not sure, it's going to be pretty busy, I think, because of Holy Week, if you're going during that, and also because it's a holy year. So you may want to get online and book that if you know the days that you'll be in Santiago. So there are other churches. I go into every church along the Camino that I pass because I see a lot of art in those old churches that's just as good as anything I've seen in the Louvre or any other big museum. It's amazing, some of the art that you'll see along the way. And also the little private churches are quite interesting. A lot of times they're not open, but you can peek in the windows and see, and they're just very quaint and beautiful. So in Santiago, I'm trying to think, is there anything else? There's just a lot to do and see. There are street performers. There's the guy that plays the bagpipes under the bridge that'll drive some people nuts and other people will love. There are opera singers. It's just a big city, and there's a lot to see and do and explore. So I wouldn't just rush out of there. I'd spend 2 or 3 days visiting if I were you. If you have any questions, put them below. And I think that's about all I have to say about Santiago. Don't rush out. Spend a day or 2 there and support the local economy. Buen camino.